we are, episode 101, Two Idiots on the Blockchain. Welcome, everybody. I'm your co-host, Scott Sieg, a.k.a. Scott Sieg 007. My co-host here,
Chris Osborne, a.k.a. Ozzy.
Ozzy. And our production guru behind the scenes is...
How's it going? My name is Michael Dameron, and this is just a quick shout-out to say that this podcast is not financial advice. We are not financial advisors, so if you are looking for financial advice, please speak to your personal financial advisor.
Wow.
It's like I practiced that.
Was that one breath or two?
I think it was one breath.
Better than I would do. Well, welcome everybody to Two Idiots on the Blockchain, where we talk about everything and anything tech-related, especially emerging tech innovations. And as technology moves forward, we're here to bring it to everybody in a dumbed-down kind of way that the average person can actually understand and the average person can get involved. We really have a mission here at our podcast to not just be informative and educational, but we also want people to be able to engage with this new technology. So we don't want people just to be able to listen to our podcast and get information, which they will get, and laugh hopefully along the way at us as we stumble through this new technology. But also we're hoping to bring our audience and our community with us on this journey. As Chris is our resident real dummy, as the two idiots on the blockchain would suggest that we're two idiots, but I don't think I'm an idiot. Do you? Do you think you're an idiot?
I might be an idiot when it comes to this. That's why I'm super excited to join this journey and learn as we go with everybody listening in.
Yeah, I think as we take our journey and bring everybody with us, the goal would be to have everybody here in a few years say, man, I'm so glad that I tuned into you guys' podcast and got involved. So we're not here, again, to give you financial advice, but we are here to give you hopefully a kick in the butt to get involved, do your research, and really be immersed in technology because it is shaping our world. And as we'll get in here, this episode, it was really kind of specifically about where it all is beginning, this big transformative wave of technology, which I believe started about 12, 13 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, maybe about 25 years ago, really where the concepts began, but where it's really been started to be implemented here is fairly recent history. But things are changing, and they're changing in a very rapid way. So we're here to bring it to everybody. Welcome everybody as you go through this journey. Hopefully you have a great time listening to us. Hopefully you can make fun of us because we're going to stumble and make a lot of mistakes. And, but we're here to have fun too. So I guess we'll start here with introducing ourselves as far as who we are, so you guys can kind of get a little bit of background, who we are, what we're about. And then we'll move into today's topic of how the world is changing with technology and specifically blockchain. So I guess I'll go first, or you want to go?
I can go. So Chris Osborne, my background is in telecommunications for the last 20 years. Started off in sales, moved my way up into management, and then into outside business-to-business sales for the last 8 years. I have a family of 5, super athletic, love the gym. How I met Scott was actually coaching wrestling, so that's me in a nutshell. Super busy with 3 kids.
So technology is nothing new to you, really, but
definitely not new to me. I mean, with cell phones, how they've evolved the last 20 years, then moved my way over into the fiber internet sector. It's been a fun ride, to say the least.
All right, so our man behind the scenes, our technical guru, producer extraordinaire. Hey, you can go ahead and introduce who you are and a little bit about yourself.
All right. So, like I said earlier, my name is Michael Dameron, and I was born with a face for radio. So I'm kind of glad that I'm sitting here off camera. But so I am an entrepreneur. I own a marketing agency, and I've been a full-time marketer and social media manager since I graduated college. And now we're adding podcasting to that resume too. So I'll put my resume in the description below if you're interested.
There you go, a little plug already.
No pressure, Scott. No pressure.
No, I've been an entrepreneur pretty much all my life. It kind of sums up who I am. I know it's kind of cliche to say, but that really kind of has been in my blood since I was a kid. As far back as I can really remember, back to selling candy to my neighbors down the hall and buying out the local Quickie Mart to take all the now-and-laters and gum and candy and stuff to school to make extra money. Multiple paper routes and lawn cutting businesses. I mean, it pretty much runs the gamut, but pretty much in my blood. So that's kind of where my basis has come from, and really has stuck for the last 35 years. Starting, being involved in many companies and projects. Some have done well, some have failed completely. So it's been definitely a lifelong journey for myself. So that's kind of the basis of who I am and where I come from. I currently run 3 companies now and involved in many projects. So it keeps me busy, and me being busy I think that's where my happy place is. So that's I of all those businesses throughout my whole life, technology has always been fascinating to me. So I've been drawn to that. Even when I was selling now-and-laters at school, I was still interested in like how could I do this better. Back then, I mean, I'm kind of showing my age a little bit. There wasn't cell phones, even in existence back then. Not even the car phones, I don't think. Maybe. But I didn't have a car, so having a car phone.
They didn't have bike phones, though.
No, I didn't. So it would have been nice to have some sort of technology to enhance that experience. But leveraging my time is something that always interests me. It started with paper routes. So when I got one paper route, that to me seemed like a real waste of time. Like I wanted to be able to have a lot of paper routes so I could make more money. So I started leveraging kids in the neighborhood that wanted to have their own paper route, just didn't know how to go about doing it. So I'd get the paper out and then I'd kind of sub it out to them. So, I ended up with 5 or I think 6 routes total, that I was controlling and collecting for and whatnot. So had I had some technology back then, that would have been a lot easier to do too. So I've always kind of been drawn to that. Really kind of started with the internet. When I was a teenager in high school, the internet was kind of being built. I knew some people that were really involved with technology and the internet in its early days, like the AOL dial-up days. And I was interested, but I didn't take any action. Mostly because I didn't have anybody there telling me I needed to.
And most people back then, too, I mean, you didn't know where it was going to go.
No, I mean...
No idea.
At least most people didn't. I mean, obviously, there's really smart people in the world that do, and did back then. But had I had somebody like us saying, hey, in kind of a very simpleton kind of way, hey, look at this technology, dive into it. You can be part of it in a major way. So I just didn't have that back then, but my interest was there. I think it was a blur for me from like 12 years old to 25. It was kind of a blur, so I wasn't really totally focused on any one thing. There's so many different things in my life going on, from military service to, just being young, single guy to trying to be an entrepreneur and learning different skill sets. So I think I was just busy doing things and not really focused in on what technology was doing and what the internet was going to become. So I was a little disappointed in myself looking back on it that, hey, I didn't get involved. Today, I'm hoping that we can make a difference in that even if it's just that one guy out there, that one woman out there that's, interested but doesn't know where to start, doesn't know what to do, doesn't really understand this technology and where it's going. Hopefully they can listen to our podcast and watch us walk through this journey and talk about these things, and also give information on how to get involved and how to really transform your life, because I think we're in that paradigm shift right now that's going to happen. So maybe leads us into what we're here to talk about today, and that's the beginning of what we believe is going to be the tsunami wave of technology that's being built. And we have to start somewhere. So I think obviously everybody knows what the internet is. Everybody knows pretty much how it was started, what companies are involved. Everybody knows what Google is. Everybody knows what Microsoft is. And all the big players that have come along the way with Amazon and Cisco and some of these other big gigantic companies that are using the internet, to change things in the world. So where we're going to start is our journey into a technology called blockchain, and really is the basis of everything that we're going to talk about probably over this next year, because everything's being derived from this unbelievable invention. And I think it's important that our audience, and hopefully questions that you may have about blockchain, will help everybody understand.
Oh, and I have a million of them. So
Well,
I hear blockchain and I'm like, block and a chain. Do we put those together? How do they go together?
Well, the thing that when I first heard that term was way back. I heard of Bitcoin before I heard of blockchain.
And I've heard of Bitcoin too, as well. Blockchain's pretty new to me, personally.
Bitcoin just popped out because it was something that you could actually physically do. You could buy, you could transact. It was actually something, that made sense if you talked about it for 2 minutes. But blockchain is the underlying technology that makes that possible. Without blockchain, there would be no Bitcoin. So
kind of like without the app world, there would be no apps.
Right. Without, the internet itself, there would be no Amazon.com. There would be no internet banking. There would be, there would be no phone service like we have it today. So the internet really powers almost anything that we're doing, right, on a daily basis. Blockchain is, you can equate it to like the internet. It's the underlying technology that's going to make everything else work.
So, to back everything up a little bit, who started it? Why was it started to begin with? And what is it? What does it do for me?
What does it do for you?
At the end of the day, that's what I want to know, and all of our viewers are going to want to know.
Okay, let me see. All right, probably the easiest way is just to start from the very beginning. It was originally designed or thought of and implemented all the way back in 1991. So this started, 30 years ago?
Wow.
Basically.
And I'm just now hearing about it.
That's kind of how technology works, right? You have very, very forward-thinking, extremely smart nerds, right, that develop stuff, and then it takes many years usually before that becomes something that can be put into practice and used to the masses. So it does take a while. It doesn't happen overnight typically. But it was started by two guys, one guy named Stuart Haber and another guy, Scott Stanetta. And these guys were trying to develop a way to keep timestamps on documents from being altered. So somebody couldn't go in and change, like on, say, like exams and things like that. Somebody couldn't change the date or contracts or something like that. So they were looking at ways to, have a data system that was tamper-proof. That's what they were looking to do. And they really did kind of come up with the concept and how to implement it. So blockchain kind of started there. but never really took off in any kind of way. Nobody really saw this and said, oh, this is a great technology. We can use it to do this. So it kind of sat on the shelf till late 90s, I think around 98, 99. And then we're going to kind of get into this a little bit because I think it kind of plays into what we're doing now. But right around 1997, 98, there was a gentleman named Nick Szabo. And this gentleman's name's probably going to come up a lot here in the future. Because what he did is in 1998, he saw this technology that these guys had come up with. And he was the brainchild to say, hey, we could use this for financial transactions. So we wouldn't need a bank to transact money. We wouldn't need somebody to say it's okay to give you money. So, and we wouldn't have to do it in cash. So we wouldn't need a bank. We wouldn't need a government. We wouldn't need borders. I could give you $100 right now. Let's just say I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, and you're in Beijing, China, and we're talking on the phone. I want to send you $100. I mean, typically, what would you have to do? You'd have to go to Western Union, or you'd have to go to the bank, do a wire transfer, but
pay the fees,
and all those things. You're asking somebody else for permission to send this money, whether it be a service like Western Union or a bank. In Western Union, you're going through a bank anyway. So you're asking for permission, right, from somebody. Somebody has to facilitate all this. What he came up with, Mr. Szabo came up with, was a way to circumvent all that, was for you to control your own means of money and send it directly to the person that you want to get it with nobody in between. So seemed like a great idea, right? But again, just like when the two gentlemen that came up with the technology, it never went anywhere. It was an idea. I think it was called BitGold, something like that. BitGold, I believe, is what it was called. And it just was before its time. It wasn't ripe, wasn't ready. I mean, timing is everything with technology. So it was ahead of its time, and it never took off. It was just kind of an idea, and it never really went anywhere. So kind of the technology and the concept of what our first app was going to be on blockchain was thought about in the 90s. Kind of put on the shelf all the way up until 2006-ish, 2007, when it got its legs. So the invention of blockchain theory kind of happened in the early 90s, probably even long before that, would be my guess. The theory of what blockchain is probably happened before that, but 1991 was the first use case. 1998 was the second use case, and it wasn't until around 2008 where it really became something. So, that's kind of the lineage of time frame of this technology. So I think that answers one question. Second question is, what is it?
Right.
So
what is a block in a blockchain?
A block, there's a lot of technical stuff that goes into that. But let me read what the technical definition is, and then we'll kind of talk about it in layman's terms. So blockchain, it's a purely what could I say? That would be that would be something that would be a little bit easier to understand. Well, all right. Blockchain is a distributed database that is shared among the nodes of a computer network. As a database, a blockchain stores information electronically in a digital format. How about that? Now you got it, right? Now we could just move on to everything else, right?
Currency in a digital format. Basically.
Well, that's what Bitcoin is, but what we're talking about is blockchain. So, blockchain is, again, you can think of it as the internet. You can think of it as like the internet. It's like this table, and we're going to build a bunch of stuff on this table. We're going to put our microphones on here, and it's our cell phones. We're going to put our Patron and our Corona Extra. We're going to build all this stuff on this table, which is the internet. You think of blockchain as the same thing. So we're going to build things on this technology. So
And there's separate blocks you can build off of, correct?
sort of, yeah. You could think of the blocks as just blocks of data, and they're linked to each other. Hence the word blockchain. So they're kind of chained to each other, and they use chain because it's permanent. It's not like they're just tied. They're really chained together for life. So as you put data into these blocks, and these blocks get verified, then those blocks become solid for life. They're stamped on the internet forever. They can't be changed. They can't be altered. They can't nothing. So
Hacked.
nothing. Nope. Once they're validated and they're as a block, then boom, it's forever. Once that block fills up, goes on to another block. So this goes on now millions of times over and over again, depending on what information is being put into that block. So it could be financial information, it can be data, it could be contract information, it can be art, it can be music, it could be a lot of things that go into these blocks of information, because that's really all it is just chained together blocks of information.
And since it's like that, since it's time stamped, all that good stuff, how is it what makes it so trusted?
As far as you put something on there, you trust that it's not going to be altered and changed and whatnot. Well, not getting too technical.
I mean, if you're going to put financial information and just different things like that on there,
you got to trust.
Right.
Right. Well, it comes trustless when you have a network of computers. So let's just break it down. We want to do a financial transaction for $1, and we want to little diagram up here. So we want to send this dollar bill to somebody. So what we're going to do is we're going to send the information of who we are, who we want it sent to, and we're going to put it into the block. And that block is connected to many computers all over the world. These are you can think of them as validators. They call them miners, but they're really validators. They're validating this information is correct. Like your dollar is $1, and this is the wallet that it's going to. This is the wallet you're sending it from. All this is legit, and we're validating this. That's what all these computers are doing out there. Once they get enough of these transactions, they'll put them into a block and validate them. So you're not trusting any one person or one computer system. You're basically trusting that there's thousands of computers out there that are validating, saying, yes, this is all correct information and valid. And boom, the stamp gets put on it. So without having to know exactly how, I mean, there's tons of videos out there that people can resource to find out exactly how a blockchain transaction takes place. I don't really think it's that important that everybody knows the exact technical details of that, because it really doesn't matter at this point in time, because we have proven that blockchains work. The technology works. It is immutable. It is borderless. It is decentralized. It is all these things that we've been told it is. Do we need to know? If you're a developer, you need to know. So that's a whole different ballgame. If you're developing apps, you're developing technology, then yeah, you got to know that stuff. But for the average person that's out there that wants to know how to be involved in technology, they just need to know those basic terms, that it's the underlying technology that everything is being built on. And it's what allows things like Bitcoin to work. Okay. Without blockchain, there would be no Bitcoin. Bitcoin couldn't work. It's using the blockchain technology to be able to function.
Okay. With that being said, like, what are the different use cases we can use blockchain for?
Oh, wow. that's almost a whole episode in itself. But we
high level.
30,000 foot view, it can be used for financial transactions. Obviously, we know that, i.e. Bitcoin. It can be used to solve our voting issue. It could be used to tally votes and validate them and know that they're correct and they're not, fraudulent. They could be used to control inventories of companies, inventories of shipping, things of that nature, logistical things that happen behind the scenes. Blockchain can be used to make that better and more streamlined. Real estate deeds, ID cards, they could be used to assert ownership. So, like I said, real estate deeds, music, art, data. I mean, there's really an unlimited amount of, and probably one of the bigger things is gaming. The future of the whole gaming industry is going through a metamorphosis right now, and it's all using a blockchain type technology. So almost anything that we do, whether it's any kind of data that's transferring back and forth, and we're using data every day, everybody is, with our cell phones, but you know that from being in the cell phone business. We're all using, data every single day. It's just there's a handful of companies that are controlling that data. As we all know, Google and all these big companies are, or any big company that you subscribe anything or have anything to do with is selling data. That's how they're making their money for the most part. So data is huge, and blockchain really can change how that's being used and who's benefiting from it in the future. So there's some cases of what blockchain can be used for, and then that spiders off to a lot of other things. So it's almost infinite as far as technology goes, what blockchain can be used for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I can see definitely where the gaming world is moving that way. I mean, actually the cell phone world and even music.
Yeah, I could see, just kind of glimpsing into the future. I could see a time when we play a video game, we're actually in the game, and we actually all have ownership within that game. We'll be able to actually make real world currency within that game. We'll be able to buy things within that game that we'll be able to receive in the real world.
They somewhat have that already. I mean, not really where you can buy in the real world.
In a real primitive way, yeah.
Right.
But, just like when we played Atari back in the 80s, with Pong, you had the little ping,
right,
Pong, ping, but that was revolutionary then. That was like, oh my, what is this? I can sit here and play this game, and interact with it. That was huge back then. Think of that now, and where we're at now with games, what it's going to be in 5 to 10 years from now. It's going to be if you think of the progression of where it came from Atari to PlayStation and Xbox, what we're doing now, blockchain technology really will play a huge part in what's going to happen over the next 10 years in gaming. So many things that are going to probably change our world and our lives and how we deal with things because of blockchain. And, a lot of this stuff people probably won't even know. They're not even going to know that their transaction is using blockchain technology, or their data is being stored on a decentralized database rather than some centralized database.
With that being, what does that mean? Decentralized and centralized? What I mean?
The importance of blockchain really is an underlying thesis of why is this important? And I think if you think about some of the bad things that have happened when it's related to data and finance, it really spawned its legs through the 2007-2008 financial crisis, when these banks were too big to fail, supposedly, and they were bailed out by our tax money, by our government, and they just printed a bunch of money and kicked the can down the road, so to speak. So, Bitcoin was born using blockchain technology, and it was born because of these things, that these guys can make these deals behind the scenes, and we really didn't have any control over any of it. So blockchain being decentralized means that nobody controls it. Nobody can change it. Anybody can interact with it no matter where you're at. Versus centralization, where you can think of it as a bank, I guess, where you put your money in a bank and it's centralized. The bank controls it. The government controls the bank, basically.
Okay, I like the other way.
As we've seen that. So there's a lot of control of your money versus a decentralized blockchain-based technology where you would put your money in and nobody controls it but you. You have complete control over that money. So you don't have to ask permission. Nobody can take it. It can't be seized. Can't be held up. Can't be altered. None of those things. So that's kind of the difference between centralized, decentralized.
And at that point, it's kind of a no-brainer.
The technology is, and that's why it's growing so fast. And that's why we're even here sitting here talking about it. Because it is what the internet was back in the 1980s. That's where we're at today. Probably 1985, 1986 in the world of the internet. So we have about 10 years. It's going to move faster, I think. So I think we got about 10 to 12 years of building of this infrastructure before it becomes user-friendly for the masses. So, another difference between decentralized and centralized, you can think of as data. Okay, so if you're on Facebook, let's just say, and you're, every day you're putting posts on and interacting with your family and doing what Facebook was designed to do, as we know now, they have a monetary policy of collecting data and selling it off to somebody that has a high bid on it. That's a concept of centralized data. They're collecting data, putting it into a database, and then selling it off. Decentralized data storage would not be able to happen like that. So decentralized would not allow that data to be on one particular control system. So Facebook wouldn't have control of that data. It'd be controlled by each individual creator. So that's another example of decentralized versus centralized. And there's platforms being built right now that are going to solve this centralized data issue. So I think in the future we'll start to see that, where the creators of the content benefit, not one entity. So think of Facebook, think of all the posts you've put on for years, and think about what if you were able to, make 15 cents every time you posted some content and somebody reacted to it.
Oh, my wife would be rich.
My
wife would be.
But that's kind of what Facebook's been able to do. They've been able to monetize in a way like that. So they've used our content, which we create, to enrich their, centralized bank. So, decentralization kind of goes into that thesis of, hey, bring the control and the benefits of data and finance and other things to the people that are actually contributing to it. So it's really a disruptor in a lot of ways to a lot of industries and a lot of powerful people. So, it's not going to be a smooth linear road to get from point A to everything's utopia. It's going to be a bump in the road because there's powers that be that really don't want to lose control.
And with it being decentralized, are there any restrictions?
No.
No.
What do you mean by that?
Like, is there any restrictions on what you put on there?
No, not really. I mean, obviously there's protocols. There's got to be developers that develop whatever it is that's being developed. And within those developments, they can put into the code, certain parameters. Like, obviously, I don't think anybody wants to see a free reign of child pornography or, illegal, things going down. So that's a moral issue, right? How do the developers, walk that tight line of developing something that nobody can mess with and the creators or the people interacting with it can do whatever they want with it. It's a big tug of war going on right now. You know, where is there a line drawn, and who makes up the rule? You know, is true decentralization, is that the way of the future, or not? You know, should there be some rules? You know, so if we're talking about like Facebook, and we'll stay with them because it's easy for people to understand. You know, what if you were able to put anything you want on Facebook? Anything you want, no matter what. No rules. Nobody can tamper with what you put on there.
Oh, it'd be a shit show.
It would be a mess, right? It would be a mess. So, you know, I think there's an obligation in society that if we're going to build these technologies out, that, you know, we're also doing it in a responsible way. And I think we'll figure that out. I think, you know, there's going to have to be some sort of parameters put into place, but I don't think anybody wants our government involved in doing that. So I think if it's self-governance from the community that develops these technologies, I think it's always going to be the best way to go. So we'll see. You know, we'll see where all that plays out. But blockchain technology in general is the basis of everything. Like I said, we're going to probably talk about moving forward when it comes to technology, because it really is a basis for a lot of things to come and a lot of things that are being built right now. So when it pertains to blockchain, I think what our viewers need to know mostly is that it's going to allow us as individuals to invest our time, our energy, our funds, our money into technologies that are going to be built on blockchains moving forward, that are going to change our lives, and we're going to actually be participants in that technology rather than just end users of the technology like we are for the most part with most what we have now. The people that were, you know, instrumental in developing cell phones and the parts that go into those cell phones, that's a pretty small group of people, right, in companies, really. I mean, you talk about worldwide. And they're really the ones that are benefiting. Us using our phones every day doesn't really do anything for us per se. We're not involved in any of that technology for the most part. We're end users, you know, convenience, you know, the ease of doing
really
things.
It's the convenience factor of it all.
It is. You know, we're the end users though. You know, again, I keep going back to what if you were able to, you know, get paid on the data you use.
Be awesome.
Yeah. So, and that's what we're talking about here. Blockchain really has opened the door for people to really be involved, and not just in a philosophical way, like real tangible, you know, hey, I can put my money and my time and my energy and my education into this, and I can really be part of what's going to happen in the future.
Right. And speaking of the money piece of it, I mean, as long as there's the security protocols and just really a trusted platform for you to put your money on, I think that would be huge.
Well,
people.
And that's kind of what we have. That was the first step in blockchain, was developing its first application. So I always think of blockchain as like an operating system, just like iOS with Apple, or, you know, whatever Samsung uses with their technologies, Windows,
right.
You know, Apple, you know, whatever operating system you're using, I think of that as a blockchain. So what we're talking about now is what was the first app that was developed on that operating system called blockchain, and that was Bitcoin. So that's the next rabbit hole that we have to jump down, because Bitcoin really was the first use case for blockchain technology that made sense and grew legs.
And Bitcoin, and I've heard a lot about Bitcoin. I mean, I've never really went down the whole rabbit hole of it yet, per se. I've heard a lot of good things. However, I really don't know what it is. Broad picture of it, I've heard the name, but what is it?
Well, Michael just pull up a nice shiny little image of it right there. But for our listeners, Bitcoin is something that I think should be celebrated, and with that, I think we ought to do a shot to celebrate.
Let's get it.
I'm not going to say what this is because we're not getting paid for that, but just know that it's pretty good. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick little shot or drink, or whatever you want to call it, in celebration of what Bitcoin, really the invention of Bitcoin. And I think as we go through it here, I think you're going to understand why the invention was so critical to everything that's what's happening right now. Even though blockchain really was the real invention.
I think Michael needs to do one too, though.
I don't know. He might mess up our buttons
All
back
these
there.
camera angles are going to start getting really funky.
You just tell me when there, Chris.
I'm good.
All right, so Bitcoin.
It smells good.
All right, here's the blockchain and Bitcoin. Ooh. Tasty.
Little apple.
Okay, so do you know everything you want to know about blockchain? Is there anything that you don't understand that you feel like you need to?
I think relating it back to the cell phone piece and the app world and all that and the internet, I think that's kind of solved the question for me. Just gave me a better outlook on it.
Yeah, and
relating to Bitcoin as an app and the first app, and then whatever apps come after that.
I think it's just a real simple way to think about it. I mean, because when I first heard of Bitcoin first, and it was some period of time after that, probably over a year after that, before I even knew what blockchain was. And here I had that completely backwards. I should have been thinking about, well, what's making this Bitcoin thing work?
And I heard about Bitcoin about, 4 years ago, maybe 5. And I mean, you can make money from it. And I'm like, that's cool, but I've never heard of it from before. So what does it mean to me?
Well, I'm going to give you let me give you my,
and going to blockchain, I just started to hear about blockchain
today. Well, okay. So is there anything you don't understand about it?
I think
Do you have kind of an understanding about?
I'll probably have more questions, but and that's for future episodes.
Yeah. I mean, just getting a general understanding. Okay, what?
I think relating it to the app world, that really
sinks it in for you.
And I think it will help a lot of people out there, just because most people have a smartphone. They know what an app world is on their smartphone. They know how to download an app.
All right.
And hopefully down the road, that's how it will be for Bitcoin or whatever the next.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm hoping, we can accomplish here. So, along comes and
so Bitcoin. My first question. What is it? Why was it created as an app on the blockchain? And what is it going to do for me?
What is it going to do for you?
That who, what, why?
All right, so basically, Bitcoin was developed, I think, as a big fuck you to the banks.
Awesome.
Honestly, I think it was a bunch of really smart, geeky, intelligent individuals, developers, that maybe had a libertarian type of feel about
NWA on them.
Kind of went NWA on them, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, just basically hey, and I'm not even sure they really knew what was going to happen down the road with it. But I think that they just saw blockchain as a way to be able to say, we can put our money on this. and we can make this work, and we can make it work without the government, without the banks, without anybody getting in our way. We can transact between each other without anybody being involved. So this all got started.
With no fees.
Well, there's fees involved.
Okay.
That's maybe a myth there.
Would it be like comparable to like a Cash App, or
sort of, but Cash App's centralized, right? Somebody's
Right.
controlling that. So any fees that are involved in Cash App and the use of Cash App goes to a company or a bank.
Okay.
The difference with Bitcoin, let me back up. Let me again read you the official, because I think it's kind of important. And I maybe I'm a little weird about this, but I do believe that we'll put the link in the description of the videos down below. But I think it's important for everybody to read the Bitcoin white paper, at least the theory and the reason for it becoming in existence. It's written into the white paper. So we'll put a link down there. I think everybody should read that so they have a basic understanding of where all this started from. But I'm going to read the definition. A purely peer-to-peer version of electric cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution utilizing blockchain technology. All right, so that's basically in the white paper. It's an electronic payment system based on cryptography, proof instead of trust, allowing any two willing parties to transact directly with each other without the need for a trusted third party, trustless, borderless, and decentralized way of transacting, and a digital store of value, i.e. digital gold. I put that part in there because that's kind of what it's being used for now. But backing up, it's a peer-to-peer payment system. That's what Bitcoin was designed to be. That's, again, going back to the big fuck you to the banks. That's basically what it is. Hey, I don't need a bank for me to send you money. And the people that do benefit from that are the people that are spending their time validating those transactions on the blockchain. So those are the people that get rewarded in the form of transaction fees, not a bank or whatever, some greedy third party. So it's really the community governing itself and benefiting from it. So it's that's Bitcoin in a nutshell. It was designed to be a payment system, like a PayPal, Cash App, all those, except for it's decentralized, autonomous, borderless, trustless, all those things that the blockchain gives you. Bitcoin just is able to take advantage of that technology for financial transactions. And that changed the game big time. But it took a while. I mean, that happened. The developers behind it, whether it's a developer team or multiple people or one person, the white paper was written by somebody named Satoshi Nakamoto. That was their...
Which is an awesome name.
It is an awesome name, yeah. And I believe they're not Oriental or Japanese or Korean or Chinese or Vietnamese or any of those. I believe that name was to throw people off as to who they really were. And I think we're going to get back to that name, Nick Szabo. My opinion, I'm calling it right now, that Satoshi is Nick Szabo. Or... part of Nick Szabo's development team. I just believe, looking at the history, he was the first one to come up with the idea of using financial transactions on the blockchain. And he really basically did develop the idea of Bitcoin. And then all of a sudden he kind of fell off the radar till 10 years later, and all of a sudden Bitcoin comes out anonymously. And developed on open source development software, and and this guy named Nakamoto comes up with this brilliant idea,
Right.
and then takes off. So the cool thing is nobody really knows who developed it. It is truly decentralized. Nobody controls it. It's out of anybody's purview as far as control anymore. It has no competition. And that's why I think Bitcoin's here to stay. People say, oh, what's going to happen? As it reached its, it went up to however many dollars it is. I think it's irrelevant what the price is. I think it's the only probably cryptocurrency that's really completely decentralized in a way that is going to give people confidence moving forward. There really isn't a competitor. So I think Bitcoin's here to stay. And again, the first mover adoption is important, and Bitcoin was the first. It was the first app, the first website, whatever you want to call it, on the blockchain. And I think because of that, and the fact that nobody knows or controls, what happens with it necessarily, and it's got a fixed supply, people trust it. And I think given any type of currency or any type of store of value, it's all about what people believe and what they trust that it's worth, right?
Right.
So, our dollar, it's only worth what we trust that it's worth, right? If we have a dollar bill, it's not really worth $1, just a piece of paper. It's really worth nothing, but our belief system says it's worth something.
It's worth $1.
It's worth $1 worth of whatever, right? It's not backed by anything anymore. It's what our government says it's worth. It's really not worth anything. If we want to get deep into what currency is and all that, I don't think we really need to get into all that. But Bitcoin started out to be a peer-to-peer payment system, like a Cash App or a PayPal or something like that, that nobody could control. And the people would...
These are the benefits of it, too. So... no control.
Right. Yeah, no control, being able to control your own money.
Centralized.
Nobody can come and take it, seize it. That was the idea. We control our own money.
Which is amazing.
It is amazing.
Just the thought of it.
And needed. I think we've put way too much trust into our banking system and the people that control it, because they get greedy. And greed spawns fraud and all kinds of things that they do with our money.
Tell me this. So your average construction worker, can he get Bitcoin?
Yeah, anybody can buy Bitcoin.
So anybody can buy Bitcoin.
Right. And unlike a dollar bill, similar to a dollar bill. Okay, so you could buy a fraction of a dollar bill, right? If you thought the dollar bill was going to be worth more money in the future, more than $1, you could buy a penny. You could buy 1/100 of a dollar. Right. You could buy a penny, or you could buy 10 cents. You could buy 1/10 of a dollar bill. You can do the same thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's divisible, I think, to the millionth. 9 decimals. I'm way off. 100 million. It's divided by. So you can buy 100 millionth of a Bitcoin.
So when you buy something, or when you buy some of Bitcoin, where does that go? Because it's all digital.
It is, yeah. So, I'll tell you a little story about my first interactions with Bitcoin and how it's changed, and to get into kind of leading into your answer. My first interaction with Bitcoin was just trying to get some money. So I was a very small investor in a online poker companies, actually 2 of them. And what they allowed you to do is they took small cap investors. So you could put, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, whatever, and you could invest it in these companies because they were looking to get cash and liquid assets to, build their businesses, because they couldn't go to banks. Nobody was giving money for online poker companies to build. So they were taking small retail investors. So, so people would invest, and then what happened is the government went after them, like they always do. Some senator somewhere thought it was morally improper or wasn't getting their cut, and decided, hey, online poker should be illegal. And I think it was one congressman slipped a provision into a much bigger bill, as they always do. And it was like at the 10th hour, nobody was going to read it. Nobody did read it, and it passed. And it became law. And it became against the law to have online poker companies within the United States. actually
Wow.
transacting with anybody within the United States. So they couldn't go after these companies because they were smart enough to move into more friendly governments. But what they did is they went after their payment systems. So anybody that was involved in any kind of online poker companies on that level would know that they went after the payment processors, the PayPals, the banks that would transact with them, so people could get paid, right? So if you were playing poker, you wanted to get paid. So I figured out pretty early on that I was not a good poker player, especially online. I loved to play, just wasn't real good at it. I realized that, hey, I'm at a big disadvantage here. I need to be on the other side of the equation. So, the investment side seemed to be a better route to go. But what happened is when they shut down the payment processors, these companies didn't have a way to pay their investors back because we were getting dividends. We would get quarterly dividends based on their profits. It really was a pretty cool investment because they would pay on the dot every 3 months.
Right.
They'd send you a report. Hey, this is what we did. This is your cut, basically. Yeah. Well, they couldn't pay us no more. Not in a traditional sense. So they had to find another way. So there was this thing called eGold back then. And this is, when is this? This is like 2010, 2009, 2010, somewhere in that range. And so they started sending, you had an option. You could do this eGold. Or no, it's e-bullion is what they called it. E-bullion and this thing called Bitcoin. And I started out using e-bullion because it kind of made sense. E-gold, okay, that makes sense. So you transact it and you're backed by gold. You get so much gold, worth of gold, and then you exchange that for cash in whatever currency. Bitcoin didn't make any sense to me. I didn't know what the heck that even was. So, but I was having some issues with the e-bullion being able to get cash out of it to my bank account. The banks kept blocking it. And it isn't like you can just call the bank and say, hey, I want this transaction to go through, and they're not letting it go through. Like, who do you call? Like, it's a really hard thing to, at least back then, it was really hard to get that undone. So I said, oh, well, I had another person that I knew that was investing in these things too. And I called him. I said, hey, how are you doing this? How are you getting your money? He's like, oh, I'm using Bitcoin. Okay, well, what is Bitcoin? He's like, well, it's just, same thing as e-bullion. They pay into this account, basically. You email this person with that set of numbers and then with the amount and all this and all the information, and then they'll send you this address with X amount of Bitcoin in it. Okay. And well, then you got to go take that and you got to exchange that to get it back into cash. I mean, it was an extreme process. And it was the most shady thing I've ever done in my life when it comes to money. Like you're emailing some guy, right? Some address.
Meet me on the corner.
Right. It's just kind of how it was. It was a digital way of, hey, meet the guy around the corner in the blue hat and he'll give you your bag of money.
He'll hook you up.
It was kind of that. It was. But there wasn't the infrastructure that's built now. Okay. So today, to answer your question, like how do you get, can somebody buy Bitcoin? Yeah, somebody can buy Bitcoin really easy. I mean, shoot, they've made it super easy now. Like if you have Cash App on your phone, there's a Bitcoin button. You can buy Bitcoin right on your Cash App. Not what I would advise people to do. Not what I would do for sure. I am a person that believes in why the technology was built. And I think we ought to treat it as such. Otherwise, we run the risk of being right back in the same old system, just using new technology, which is the tug of war that's going on with that now. I mean, the banks aren't going to just roll over and say, yeah, you don't need us no more. We'll just go away. It ain't going to happen.
Right.
So, they're fighting tooth and nail right now to figure out, okay, how do we position ourselves to be involved in this next wave of technology without going out of business. So, or losing control, because they have a pretty good gig going, and have for a long time. So, the average person can invest in the first very app that blockchain technology allowed to have happen, and you can invest in it. Okay, so anybody can buy Bitcoin, and you can buy slivers and fractions of a Bitcoin. So if you have $100, even though I don't know what Bitcoin is now, $40,000, $50,000, I don't know what the price is, but it's up there. When I first got paid in Bitcoin, the first Bitcoins I ever received, there was like 12,000 of them. They were worth pennies. So back here, this flat line, that's where I had my first set of Bitcoins. And, you know, had I had any foresight, or if I had two idiots on the blockchain podcast jumping up and down, saying, you probably should look into this, right? You should do a little bit of research. A little bit of research would have showed me that, hey, this is probably going to be a big thing in the future, but I didn't. So I ended up getting rid of them, getting some money out of them. But it wasn't an investment. It was just a means of transacting, to get cash is what I was looking to get. So, when you go through all these years, 2000, started in 2008 is when the white paper came out. It really didn't go anywhere. You can go all the way up to like 2013, I think 2012, 2013, that little blip on the screen there. That's the first real exchange. Like you could go, instead of doing the shady transactions through emails and stuff like that, there was an exchange you could go to, sign up for an account, and you could buy and sell Bitcoin. It was called Mt. Gox. And it turned out to be a shit show. A bunch of Bitcoins got hacked, stolen, people lost all their Bitcoins. I mean, it was a shit show. It really was. And it goes to the downside of this technology. It's not perfect yet. There's like I was telling you in the beginning with blockchain, there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road. So that was the first major bump in the road. Like, oh shit, we can lose our money here. Right. But it isn't because of Bitcoin technology or the blockchain technology. It was because there was an exchange that was centralized and you have people controlling things. Well, that's what allowed the hack or whatever took place while people lost their Bitcoins, because there was a central area where people were keeping. Back then, a lot of people didn't know that if you don't hold your own private account address, they call it your private keys, and we'll get into that, exactly what that is here in a minute. But if you don't hold control of your Bitcoin, you don't really own it. So if it's sitting on an exchange somewhere, so like if you're a stock buyer, if you're a day trader or whatever, and you're buying stocks, and your stocks are sitting in your TD Ameritrade account or your Scottrade account, you technically still own those stocks, right? Even though they're sitting on somebody else's server. Bitcoin, the thesis was, hey, don't trust that third party. You need to control your own money. You need to have it in your possession. So back then, there really wasn't a thought process as to that. Like, nobody really thought that, hey, you're going to lose your Bitcoins if you leave them somewhere. But that's exactly what happened. So that was the first blip where we saw price go up because people could go somewhere and buy it. Because of that, the price started going up. I don't know what the price was in 2013. I had a chart here. It's like $350. So it went from, 2011, it was worth less than $1 to, in the $300 range. And that was directly because people could buy it. There was access to it. I think it went up to like $1,100-$1,200, and then it dropped because the whole theft thing happened. People lost their Bitcoins, and all of a sudden people were saying, oh, it's dead. Bitcoin's going to die. It's a scam. It was, and through those years, I wasn't paying any attention to it. I had kind of written it off. So, I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to it at all. I just really didn't. So that was kind of the first blip in the road. But if you go back from 2009 up to today, it's worth $40,000, $50,000. So, the old ages, well, if I'd have known about Microsoft stock back in 1985.
Right, or Apple. Or
your Apple stock in 1995. Yeah, what if? So, what I've learned with Bitcoin as an investment tool, So yeah, you can invest in it, which obviously really isn't what it was designed to be, right? It was a peer-to-peer payment system. But they put something in there that really changed that dynamic drastically moving forward. And maybe it's just going to have to mature. And I don't know how long that's going to take. Gold matured. It's kind of pretty stable now as far as the price. But it took a long time to get there. And we still don't know what the supply is of gold. So we don't really know if where we're at is really where we should be. Bitcoin, there's only going to be 21 million of them made. That's it.
What happens after that?
Nothing. That's it. That's all that are made. So what you got's what you got. Now that's going to take like 100 years for that to finally come to fruition, because they cut how many are made every year down every so many years. They call it the halvening, and so they slow the production of the bitcoins down as the years go on. So eventually it's going to get to the point where there's might be only like 10 made in a whole year. So obviously the supply is getting cut. It can only go to 21 million, but every so many years that the amount that are made every year are going down. So because it's got this quality to it, that there's a cap supply. And I always go back and I keep thinking about, there's more than 21 million millionaires in this world. And there's only 21 million Bitcoins that are ever going to be made. So that means if you're a millionaire in this world, not everybody could have a whole Bitcoin if they wanted one.
Wow.
So now there's derivatives and there's things that they can do, the old financial system that might be able to change that in the future. But the Bitcoin protocol itself, there's only going to be 21 million. So because of that, that's why we're seeing the price fluctuations. It's not being used as a peer-to-peer payment system anymore. Now it's being used as digital gold. So it's a store of value. So now it's becoming an investment. So it's considered by the IRS and the security, the SEC, and our government as to be an asset, just like buying your house. So you can buy it, hold it, and speculate that it's going to be worth more down the road, which lower supply, higher demand, you would think it would be worth more. So, who knows where it's going to end up down the road. I believe everybody should own one Bitcoin. Just one. You don't have to. Yeah, it'd been nice for me to hang on to those thousands of them that I had way back when.
Right.
But hindsight's always 20/20 is what it is.
What would the cost of one be right now?
One full Bitcoin, as of today, let's look that up. I want to say it's like 40-some thousand, but it was all the way up to like $60,000, $47,000.
Wow.
That's what one Bitcoin's worth. So put that in perspective. It wasn't that long ago, like 2018, it was around $3,000. So in 4 years, it's went up, it's 10x'd.
Right.
So, you could make a case for, well, that would have been a great investment back in those days. But the crazy part about Bitcoin is it's such a volatile type of instrument. In 2016, it was only worth like $1,500. And it slowly started going up to around 3,000. Right about towards the fourth quarter of 2017, it shot up, started shooting up. By December of 2017, it was up to like close to $20,000. And that's when most people in the world started hearing about Bitcoin. That's that, in the chart, that's that big spike right there, and just goes up to about 20,000. And very quickly, as you see, drop back down to around 3,000. And it did that and stayed there for quite a while in 2018. So everybody thought it was, again, saying it was a scam, it was going to die, it was this, it was that. And it didn't. It didn't do that. So, as we see it now, it was just a blip on the radar, if you're thinking about it right. So, people can buy Bitcoin, and I think people should buy it, but I think they should buy it for the right reasons. And, we'll get into that in probably the next episode. But, Bitcoin itself is the first application on the blockchain, and I think it's transformative. I think it's something that we're going to look back in 100 years and say, yeah, that's where this all started. That's where this kicked off. And yeah, I think everybody should be involved in whatever way that they can, whether it's, on the development side, learning how to code, learning how to be involved in some sort of a protocol that's blockchain based or Bitcoin based, or if you're just an investor and you want to invest, and you put some money into it, then that's good, but it should be for a long-term hold. Trading Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, it's not for the weak of heart. And I personally, I don't do it. I would not do it. I know there's people out there that do, God bless them, but that's a hard road to go, because you see the charts up,
right? It's like trust it, not trust it.
Right.
Trust it,
that's, you're right.
Not trust
it. Or manipulate it.
Right.
This is only a like $1.5 trillion industry, right? Or space and total cryptocurrency in general. There's hedge funds in our country bigger than that. So, it don't take somebody with a lot of money to manipulate these prices.
Right.
And that's what's happening too. They can play games with this, and whales and people with lots of money that are in the game are doing that. So unless you're one of those that has, hundreds of millions or more to put in and play that game, then you're probably going to lose. Because one thing that I do know, being in this space for as long as I have, nobody knows what's going to happen next week with the price. Nobody. No matter how many videos and experts that say they are, whatever. That's the one thing that I have seen that's consistent, is nobody knows. I watched people you think are the smartest people on earth. Oh, it's going to do this, it's going to do that, and it does the exact opposite. And that could be part of the manipulation too, but I think what you and what our viewers should all know, don't think that you're going to buy it and make a bunch of money and sell it and you're going to be a millionaire. I think that that's a fallacy. I think that's dangerous.
And that's the big
thing
out there right
now. I think so.
I'm going to buy this and sell it.
I'm going to make millions of dollars. Or I get a lot of, it's too late. It's already $50,000, $60,000, whatever it is. I missed the boat. I'm not putting no money into that. That's crazy. Well, there were people saying that when it was $3,000 too. It's already hit 3,000. It's 300. Now, it's too late. No. If you really look at the macro of all this, and the amount of major corporations and that are going to use this as a hedge, it's what it's going to be used for. The writing's on the wall. It's going to be used as a hedge against whatever. And these big institutions are buying it up like crazy, and they're trying to own it. And they're doing it. So if you want to be part of it, then buy some of it. Right. And hold on to it, but don't think you're going to make millions of dollars next week. It's not going to happen. I think Bitcoin is probably going to be worth $200,000 to $300,000 in 5 years. It's, if you go back and look at the history, price action, and now you look at the adoption that it's getting with big institutions. I don't think that's really that far out of whack. I think ultimately we'll probably settle in somewhere around $1 million, maybe a little less per Bitcoin. I think it could be worth that for sure. How long down the road, whenever that stabilizes like gold, I don't know. Nobody, like I said, nobody knows.
Right.
But if you go into it with the right mindset, and you put what you can afford to put into as part of your investment strategy and a piece of your portfolio, I think that's important for everybody.
And just know it's going to fluctuate.
And know it's going to go up and down. And if you have the right mindset,
look at it.
I've learned to look at it in 5-year increments. That way I could care less what happens in between that 5 years. Doesn't matter. If it goes way, way down, we get this drastic, everything's falling out dip, then sometimes I'll buy a little bit more if I can. But other than that, I'm just sitting on it and waiting for the 5 years, and then I'll evaluate it every 5 years. Maybe take some profits every 5 years to invest in other things or other technologies. But that's how I look at it. You know, I'm not going to tell anybody else to do what, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your damn money.
Right.
But, you know.
And we're not going to tell anybody out there what to do with their money.
No, don't buy Bitcoin thinking you're going to make it rich. But I think it's an important asset to own moving forward, because I do believe it's going to be worth a lot of money down the road. Just the writing's on the wall. And that's a way for you to be involved. And to be honest with you, the way I look at Bitcoin is a way to get your foot in the door, to learn about what the real innovations are that are coming. I mean, Bitcoin was that was like the genesis, right? The big explosion. And now there's all these innovations that's coming out of that. I mean, it's amazing. And Bitcoin was just like the jump off for that. So having it as a nostalgia, you know, something to have up on your wall, I think is pretty cool. So I think it's a good time to do that, even though it's worth $40,000. It doesn't matter. You can buy $200 worth,
Right.
you know, or whatever you want to do. So what do you, I mean, where are you at with, do you own any Bitcoin? Have you ever bought any?
I've never bought any. I've
Wow.
always been on the fence and just never jumped in.
Well, we're going to change that. So we're going to have to do that. You know, I don't know about the next episode, but the next couple episodes, we'll have to do that. And maybe we'll figure out a way.
For sure.
Our guru over here, Michael, will make that happen to where we can, you know, do it live so people can see, you know, kind of how easy it really is. It's really pretty easy to buy and hold. And maybe we'll go through as far as how you should hold it too, how you should store
Another
it.
thing too, like the big reason that I haven't bought any, I don't know how to. You Google things and there's a million different things you can go into buy. You don't know what's good. You don't know what's bad.
Well, and I think we'll go through some of that. You know, we're talking about, you know, new technologies. Cryptocurrency has to be, you know, one of those things. So we'll kind of go into that, and we'll go into some of those things. And really how to research them and how to really do your own research, which everybody should do. Everybody should know what they're buying.
Research.
Don't take anybody's advice. Don't do that. Because like I was saying, if you just know, nobody knows what's going to happen next week. That eliminates the expert factor, right? There are people, obviously, that know more about the technology, maybe know more about what's being built, but nobody really knows what that price action is going to do. So do your own research and know what you're putting money into. If you're going to put some money into Bitcoin, know what it is. And hopefully through this, just this conversation me and you just had, that our viewers will be able to look back on this and know, what is blockchain? Okay, yeah, I understand. It's the basis. It's the operating system of what Bitcoin is. Oh, okay, yeah, I know what Bitcoin is now.
It's the first app.
The first app, a means of transacting money, and probably a store of value moving forward. Kind of understand it. It's like gold. So hopefully people will get the gist of it and the basics. So you know, moving forward, our next episodes will be, you know, why you should buy Bitcoin and why you should not buy Bitcoin.
Definitely.
Because there's some reasons why you should not buy Bitcoin for sure.
You got my mind racing now. So.
And then there's a whole bunch. I mean, there's so much for us to dive into. There really is. There's the technology is almost mind blowing at this point. But yeah, we got guests that we're getting lined up to come in and actually kind of explain on a more technical level, and we'll dumb it down like we can do because we're a couple dummies for the most part.
And he's dumbed down for me for sure.
So any other questions you have about Bitcoin or blockchain technology?
Not today. I think on our next episode, I think we'll have a couple more questions for you.
Well, yeah, I think we're it for the day. I think we've accomplished the very, very, very basics of emerging technologies, and blockchain's kind of one of those things that have been invented that you just can't let out of the genie bottle anymore. It's out there. Or you can't put it back in the genie bottle. Bitcoin kind of goes along right with that. So hopefully everybody's got the gist of blockchain and Bitcoin, because it's only going to get crazier from here. So
I just want to thank everybody for viewing.
First episode.
First
Holy
episode.
Shit, we kind of pulled it off. It's finally coming together.
You're on the journey with us.
Yep. Whether you like it or not, you're going to hopefully learn something and hopefully have a good time doing it. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and sign off from Two Idiots on the Blockchain. See you in the next episode.
See ya.